And we're back. All right. Hi, everybody. It's Haley Grayless with VAXA Collective coming to you from Kansas City, Missouri. And I'm with my great friend Brian here. He is with Signifer Consulting out of the lovely state of Michigan. Hey, Brian.
Hello, Haley. Not so lovely today, but yes, typically lovely.
Oh, it looks pretty blue skied here. So I hope that we send that to the north for you.
Send it our way.
Yeah, Northeast. Well, Brian and I were just talking before the break. Just kidding. I feel like we're on like a radio show, but about like, okay, we're talking about middle managers and how important it is to be a good manager at any level within your organization. And you asked what my philosophy is on if somebody doesn't want to manage people and if they don't like it, if they're not really good at it, what's my philosophy? Like, what should we do? And I agreed with what he was saying. So you kind of tee it up for us, Brian, and tell me, like, what were you thinking about that scenario?
Yeah, we were talking about like what we were going to discuss today in this, and we were talking about middle management particularly, and in individuals who find themselves now managing people, and sometimes that's exactly what they've been wanting, and they've been hoping to grow into is to lead and manage other people, but then sometimes they found themselves in those positions, and it was really just kind of like a way to recognize their own performance, and they get into the management of people and they realize that, man, I am drained. I'm not enjoying this. My team feels stuck. My team doesn't seem to be like they're responding to me well. And I really don't feel like I'm enjoying having to lead and manage and be responsible for this. And that can be a really tricky, tough thing to navigate. And, Haley and I were talking, and you and I agree that if that's your situation, you maybe need to take stock and really be honest with yourself. Do I want to lead and manage people? Because at the end of the day, you do have to want it. You have to want to be able to do it, and you want to be able to do it really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that if you find yourself in that position, you have to be really honest about what you want in that situation.
Yeah, meaning like telling whoever's trying to promote you that you honestly don't want the responsibility of managing people and you probably wouldn't be good at it. Now, there are times when like it's a non-negotiable in an organization, like to get a promotion and a raise, you may have to step up. And honestly, like what I'm afraid of if we tell people, oh, if you don't want to do it, you shouldn't, is that like a majority of people just will be like, okay, well, I don't want that responsibility then. Because I think that, I don't know, in general, just I feel like I don't know if it's our society or just some people in the working world don't want more responsibility. I think you and I are a little unique because like we would want, like I wanted to be a manager and I like managing people because I think it's fun to like mentor and help grow people, coach them up. Like that's fun for me. I don't need a huge raise just to do that. I think that actually, in fact, managers should have some responsibilities taken from them and delegated to their team because the manager should be managing. But what we experienced in the place where we used to work together was definitely watching people just get this additional task added to them and no like work or responsibilities removed. And so like everybody who managed it all still had this like huge amount of work to do. And then they weren't actually helping cultivate the culture of like high performance and psychological safety for the team that we actually would want to see. So like I wanted to see our VPs and everything have less responsibility, give that to us and then manage us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And well, and I know you and I both have had the same experience where we've had, managers actually directly tell us, I really hate managing people. I don't like
Yeah.
having to be responsible for a team. And, to be someone on that team and to hear that, you try not to take it personally, and you know that it's maybe not personal. And they might even say, oh, it's not about like personal or anything, but it's like, okay, but how else am I supposed to take that? It's like I'm a part of the day that you really don't like to do. So that just, it
Yeah.
it kind of, it hits you. And I think that's why you have to be really honest with yourself about if you find yourself in that spot, you need to, is it because I truly don't feel like I am wired and like disposed to do this managing and leading? And if so, okay, that's one conversation. But is it also maybe because you don't feel equipped? Do you not feel like
Mhm.
you were prepared? Do you not have the training? Do you not have the tools? Because
Mhm.
that's something completely separate that could maybe be solved for.
Yeah.
There's things that we can do. There's like, tools you can use. There's a way for you to grow into the ability to lead and manage.
Absolutely. And I think that that's sort of the problem, is that people might be scared because they don't have any training under their belt in leadership skills and in management tools and things like that. So like that's what we were wanting to kind of expand on today, is like when you're not using your leadership skills, or you don't have the training behind you as a manager, like what are you supposed to do? You don't have literally like the stuff that I have built my career on, like teaching, like the framework. And so when I started like learning the different skills, I mean, I've always been in leadership programs since, I don't know, middle school and things like that, but I know that not everybody has. And so when I started being a supervisor in the last place I worked before starting VAXA Collective, somebody sent us through, like a few people through the supervisory training at a community college. And it was just like a 1-day thing. And I was thinking, this is going to be so stupid. Like the guy in charge is old and out of touch. And it was me judging him, because actually he was amazing. His name was Donnie Simpson. I'll never forget it. And he taught us like actually wonderful, amazing skills that, and I will admit, like I didn't know all of that stuff. And one of the things that he told me was, or told the class, was that really you need to remember 2 things. And this is still what I tell everybody who goes through my sessions. And that's managers have 2 main responsibilities. And that's 1, to motivate and inspire your team members to perform with excellence. That means you probably have to know what each person requires to feel motivated and inspired. And that's something that you really can't stop doing. And like, it has to be a consistent thing where if I know Brian needs to know the impact of our work. So actually with the nonprofit we used to work at, there was a guy who reported to me, Drew, and I asked him in one of our one-on-ones, like, what do you need to feel motivated to perform at your highest level? And he said, it's nothing about like money. He's such a sweet guy. He's like, it's really more that I need to understand like the impact of, if we're raising money for these programs, where does it go and what's the impact it makes? That's going to keep me motivated to hit my goals and raise more money. And instead of being like, well, you're close, like hit this number goal, almost to 30K or almost to 3 million, things like that. That doesn't motivate him. And I'd have to agree. I'm not like, a number for arbitrary purposes does not motivate me, but knowing what $3 million would do is a lot more inspiring. So that's what I would always try to, like, if I found information about our programs or the funding process and things like that, I would always send it to Drew, because I wanted to make sure he stayed motivated. Like that's what he said literally would motivate him. And so I wanted to make sure that I did that responsibility, like Donnie Simpson taught. And then the second thing is to remove obstacles out of their way. So the same thing in one-on-ones, I always ask, what are any obstacles that are keeping you from performing at your highest level, performing with excellence? What's keeping our culture from being great and successful? And so when I would know what obstacles were in the way of my team, the responsibility of a manager is to now go advocate for your team.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that knowing what their working genius is going to help you advocate for them more and put them in roles where they're living in those geniuses. So like, can you give me an example, Brian, of like times that you were not living in your geniuses of wonder and galvanizing, and like when it frustrated you?
Yeah, unfortunately I can give you probably a lot of examples of that. The times when it's actually really when I wasn't able to be doing what you've just described, because those are that's how I'm wired. It's like being part of those, the beginning of a project where we're really just kind of asking questions and figuring out like, what is something, do we have an opportunity here? And like, that's part of what I can do. And then getting people together and excited about it. But it's when I have to dive in and I actually have to be kind of like, okay, well, so like, now here's the checklist that we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And like here, and now here, and like, who's done step 1, 2, 3, and 4? And like, okay, like, well, we almost got there, but now I have to step in and I have to do step number 8 to make sure that everything is over the line. I would rather be spending my time getting the team together and put together in such a way that everyone is able to kind of like take the chunk that they like and that they feel fulfillment from. And, and getting the barriers out of the way, which I think I agree is one of the biggest things that leaders need to be able to do. I love to remove obstacles and barriers. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm directly executing on something, but I'm having those higher conversations of, if it's a cross-functional thing, I'm going to the other team's lead and like talking to them about like, here's what we're encountering, like, how can we resolve this? And that's where that's where I thrive. That's where I love to be spending my time. And when I'm not doing that and I have to get into the nitty gritty, people begin to feel micromanaged. People begin to
Mhm.
feel like they are not trusted. And
Yeah.
so we have this as leaders, like we do want to get in and we want to fix things. And so like when leaders aren't in their genius, like that's when you start to feel like those micromanaging feelings and feeling like, oh gosh, he won't let go of the vine. He won't trust. He won't let, he
Mhm.
won't let us do our job.
Yeah.
Um, it's that kind of, it's the irony of when you as a leader are not in your genius, your team is probably going to be suffering too. And you're going to feel like they are being suffocated by you because you're stepping out of what, your highest and best use of your time really is. And it shows up with the team's frustration.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah, he was like, it was stressing me out when you were saying like going back to other steps and things like that. It sounds just like so frustrating. And so something else you were saying was making me think about the importance of like delegating. So when
Mhm.
you're a leader, it's going to be hard for you to go help other people and make sure that you're helping everyone to work in their genius and use their strengths and like in their working drives of like what drives them if you have so much on your own plate. And so I was actually just coaching a leader a few weeks ago and this really came up of like it was so hard for him to be able to acknowledge what on his plate of responsibilities he could actually delegate to his team, and they wanted more access to tasks and like leading different things. They wanted more autonomy, but it's so hard for him to delegate any sort of responsibility to other people. So we were really working on that mindset. And it goes back to when I was at like a Gen KC Grow to CEO panel like 10, 12 years ago. And the former CEO of Burns and McDonnell, which is like a global engineering company here that's headquartered in Kansas City, the former CEO, Greg Graves, said, if you're not willing to delegate, welcome to mediocrity.
Mm.
I will never forget that statement. If you're not willing to delegate, welcome to mediocrity. Meaning, if you are not willing to give other people responsibilities so that you can support them and help them move up in their own career and like coach them to do better, that should reflect on you really well if people you've managed are succeeding, right? And if you're not willing to do that and focus on like what you can do at the top of your license, meaning like the hardest thing that you can do is usually the things that you should spend more time doing. Like they usually talk about this in like the medical field. So like a physician working at the top of his or her license would mean that they're not mopping the floors after a surgery. Not to say that's not important, but most people in the hospital can't do the operations, right? So they need to be like focusing on what's the top of their license that they can do. And so that's what I usually want people to be doing in general as much as possible. And then delegating the easier things to people who are more entry level and they'll get more responsibilities, right?
Mhm. Yeah, only do what only you can do.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So I'm so passionate about this stuff. Well, we just wanted to start our Monday by, kind of talking about this stuff, unpacking it and like what happens when you're not using your leadership skills. It usually causes a lot of frustration, causes pain for your team, and that can be frustrating. So, Brian, do you want to talk about our upcoming Genius Leadership program that we have beginning in June?
Yes, Haley and I are leading Genius Leadership, and it'll be a 6-week intensive on Wednesdays, 12 Central, I think. Yeah, 12
Yes.
to 2 Central. And it's 6 weeks. We take the week of July 4th off, and we'll be going over Working Genius, which we've talked about in some of our other videos. So look around and find that. And we'll be doing, we'll be going through Working Genius and pairing that with Haley's 5 pillars of successful leadership,
Mhm.
and kind of working through. It is going to give you all of those tools and all of the different mindsets that you need to have as a leader to be able to be effective and to be a great leader, and for you to feel free to be able to delegate and to let other people move into that space so that you can be doing the highest and best use of your time. And we start on June 4 and it runs through July 16. And 12 to 2 Central, all virtual. And Haley and I will be leading it, and we're really excited about it.
Yes, we are. We'll put the link to enroll in the comments so you can learn more there. All right. Thanks, everybody. Let us know if you have any questions.